from youth, all wide-eyed like the rest, shedding skin faster than skin can grow, armed with hammers, feathers, blunt knives, words to meet and to define and to, but you must know the same games that we played in dirt and dusty school.
Hello, it's Greg. That opening clip was John K. Samson performing Sounds Familiar at Stephen Page's songwriting panel, and you can view it on YouTube, which I highly recommend. John Samson is sitting right next to John Darnielle from the Mountain Goats in the video, and John Darnielle intently watches John Samson performing this song about 1 foot away, and you can really just feel the respect emanating from John Darnielle, and it's really lovely. So onward, welcome to another bonus episode of Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. This is an unnumbered episode. Keith isn't on this one, and as you know, whenever I come up with these random bonuses and Keith isn't here, I don't really count it, except for it's still a lot of fun for me whenever I have cool opportunities to have conversations that are just a little bit outside the purview of what this show normally does. So in the weeks after we launched Unscripted Moments, I started thinking of all the shows I wished had a song-by-song analysis, and one popped up on Good Riddance. The alphabetical Fugazi is going strong. As You Were, a podcast about Alkaline Trio, is kicking butt as usual. Jimmy Eat Pod is exploring Jimmy Eat World's discography in its entirety. Just today, I found the No Means Nothing podcast, exploring the discography of Canadian greats from BC, No Means No. The End on End podcast is exploring the entire Discord catalog. Mojack is exploring the entire SST catalog. It's amazing. This kind of niche content is just really quite something because, people just sort of figure it out as they go along. And they learn as they go. And it's just a blast to see people embracing their passions and doing something that brings a lot of people joy. So kudos to all of those shows. I am so pumped. So some of the ones that I really want a Dillinger 4 song-by-song podcast, which I've been very vocal about online. Whoever takes up the Bad Religion song-by-song podcast will have a decade-long project on their hands, and thank goodness that isn't me, is all I gotta say. But I will listen to that podcast when it comes out, because it's going to. Right? Someone's got to do it. Bad Religion? Come on. So after Unscripted Moments launched, the idea emerged on Twitter about doing a Weakerthans and John K. Samson song-by-song podcast, and it is taking shape by the hand of Mike Robichaux out of Ontario, Canada. Mike Robichaux is the curator of the One Great Tribute Love Letter to the Weakerthans compilation album, which features 23 fantastic artists performing their renditions of their favorite Weakerthans tunes. And it's an absolutely wonderful project. Not a bad song on the whole thing. You can find it at theweakerthanstribute.bandcamp.com, which I highly recommend you do. Austin Lucas and Frank Turner are on there. Bry Webb from the Constantines is on there. Lowest of the Low is on there. I mean, it's good stuff, people. Go find it. So Mike is also the host of the burgeoning John K. Samson and the Weakerthans podcast, Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast. So this episode is called, ready? Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda, talks about the Weakerthans and John K. Samson with Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast. Good title, eh? Hey, nailed that on the first try, too. Go me. So here is my chat with Mike Robichaux about his love of the Weakerthans and his thoughts on the life's work of John K. Samson. If you want to check out Mike's first episode, search Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast in Anchor and Spotify, and I'm sure it's going to be popping up in podcatchers all over the place. Mike's first episode is about fantasy baseball, that John K. Samson song from this summer, which blew my mind completely, and you get to hear me gush about it in the conversation. So you can also find Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast on Twitter and Instagram at WeakerthansPod. Give the show a follow, please. So, without further delay, please enjoy my conversation with Mike Robichaux discussing his new podcast project, Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast.
He was the yin to Chris's yang. he brought perfect balance to the band. Public Enemy wouldn't be who they were without Flavor Flav. Propaganda wouldn't be who they are without John K. Sampson. Peace.
Mike Robichaux, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda, doing a bonus episode about Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast.
It's really great to be here.
Well, Mike, I have been really excited about chatting with you for a long time now, ever since I found out that you are sort of doing the sister show, the sibling show to Unscripted Moments. You're doing Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast. So It's very exciting. I'm very happy you're here. And I'm very happy that our listeners will be able to learn about you and your project on this special bonus episode. So, Mike, can you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit to the audience so they can kind of know who you are and what you do?
So I am Mike Robichaux. I am from Guelph, Ontario, Canada, but I'm from all over Canada. Lived all over Canada. Lived in Winnipeg for a while.
Nice.
So that's where my actual love for the city kind of lies. I released the Weakerthans tribute November 15th, 2019. One great tribute, a love song to the Weakerthans. And
Yeah.
I am doing Sounds Familiar, a podcast to the Weakerthans, John K. Sampson, and various.
Awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so Mike, what cities have you lived in Canada? I lived in Saskatoon for a while, so I'm always super curious about, where people are from, like geographically around the world.
So I lived in Yellowknife.
Nice.
I lived in Hamilton. I lived in Edmonton, Winnipeg, London, Ontario. I actually was born in Oshawa, Ontario, grew up in Bowmanville, which is just outside of. But yeah, I kind of traversed around the country and made my way to Guelph. Funny enough, I didn't actually know about the Weakerthans until I moved back to Ontario.
Interesting. Nice. Okay,
Yeah,
where were you living in the country? So whenever I think about my formative years of finding and appreciating music, I was living in St. Louis in
Okay.
middle school.
Mhm.
Where were you living in the country when you started getting into music and things like that back in the day?
So my oldest brother, who's 10 years older than me, he went to York University, and that was definitely in the alternative era when Rancid, Out Come the Wolves came out,
Mm-hmm.
and bands like the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, The Cure, stuff like that. And I really got into alternative music because of him.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to bands like The Specials, The Bosstones,
Nice.
Rancid, The Cure, The Wonder Stuff. So I had that luck. Otherwise, I grew up on the oldies. But yeah, that was my segue into alternative music. Was my oldest brother.
Nice. Well, and I saw that the Bosstones actually have a new record coming out. I think they just signed to Hellcat Records. So I think the Bosstones have a brand new one coming out soon. How about that?
Their first single is 7 minutes long.
Holy smokes.
And it's got everyone in it. But I mean, I'm not surprised because Dickie Barrett has been in a guest vocalist on pretty much every Rancid album, as well as a whole bunch of Epitaph in it, Hellcat, like H2O and stuff like that. So
man, those first three Bosstones records are still so insane as well.
Yes,
they're great.
The fact that they blended essentially metal and ska.
It's wild. They're so wild.
Their Metallica cover is out of this world.
Oh my gosh, nice. Okay, so when did you get to Guelph? Because I'm just down the street. I'm in Buffalo, and I've actually been to Guelph several times because my dog had cancer. And I don't know if people know this, but Guelph has an incredible veterinary oncology center. So I took my dog to Guelph last year just before the pandemic to get cancer treatment. So I've been to your fine city. Tell me about when you got to Guelph and what's going on up there.
So I have been here since 2014. I moved here with my now ex, as well as my children's mother. She's from here. But yeah, I've been very involved with the music scene here. There's a lot of really cool bands that have come out of here. There's a really cool scene here. The kind of the dive bar here is actually called Jimmy Jazz. So it's got like a really nice involvement with the punk scene, and it's like this nice little area that's kind of it's off the beaten path, so it doesn't really get a lot of the bigger shows, but it gets like that the runoff from like something like Pooza Fest
Yeah.
or any of the bands traveling down to Fest.
Yeah.
So we'll get those like B card punk bands that'll come up like just touring through Ontario that'll tour with other bands that are like friends with them. So it's kind of nifty. We've had like a friend of mine's band, he's put out some splits with like the Game Day Regulars, Jukebox Romantics. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so let's dive in a little bit to the topic at hand, if you will, the Weakerthans, John K. Sampson, who is beloved and renowned within our podcast for his involvement in Propagandy years ago. How did you come to care so much about the work of John K. Sampson? Tell me about this fandom that you have developed and cultivated over the years.
So I, like many Canadians, I fell in love with Propagandy earlier because they are the No Effects of Canada. Everyone will say that. Like those early records for sure.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
The first two albums, like it was definitely something it seemed like they were trying to shed. I get that. But yeah, like How to Clean Everything is one of those albums. Like I remember listening to Ska Sucks so many times. And I love ska music.
Yeah.
But that like between that and Against All Authorities cover, like I must have listened to those so many times in my teens. So I remember listening to the early albums and hearing him because it's such a juxtaposition between their actual recordings and when he would come on. And like I didn't really know who he was, and it was I was always kind of intrigued by it because it was like this weird like here's these really political songs and all of a sudden there's this like flip around and he's singing a song about like romance and stuff, like
a boat in a backyard.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well that's interesting. And like my teenage early 20s mind was like all right, I'm interested, but it's like I kind of put it to the side. And it wasn't until I was in college when my friend kind of told me, it was like I kind of came back around and I was like, he's like, oh, well, check out their new album. And it was like Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes. He's like, John left the band and now there's a new bassist. I was like, well, what happened? And he told me about Fallow, whatnot. I was like, this was way after.
Yeah.
Like in 97, like I was 14. So I was like, I wasn't mature enough for Fallow at that point.
Right. Nor was I, because I heard it in 99 when it came out on Hopeless Sub City in the US, and I still wasn't ready for it. And I was 16. So at 16, I was like, nope, going back to Propagandy, please. So I get you. I understand.
So yeah, like I was really into Tomorrow's Empires. Like that was my jam. And I was really into that. And it took me a while to come back and really appreciate what John was doing with the Weakerthans for sure.
Yeah. Nice. So you were into Propagandy first then?
Yep.
Awesome. Sure. Okay. So were you into Propagandy like whenever John was in the band, or did you find them sort of like, because I got into them in late 97, early 98. So by the time I found Propagandy, the John era had already passed. So
yeah, I was definitely, it was probably 2001.
Okay, so you were heavy into the Todd years by that point when you discovered them.
And even, you know what? Even then, it was like I didn't know. Like I didn't.
Yeah. And when you're a kid, you pick up on certain things and not on others. Like Keith and I talk on the podcast all the time about how we were like listening to the music early on, and we were like, "Yeah, this rocks," but we weren't processing what was actually happening within the ideas of the songs. And we're just like, oh, I just know that this band rips, and that's all I care about. Give me the fastest, wildest songs with the biggest, craziest riffs, and I will be a happy camper. So tell me a little bit about your impressions of the career arc of John from Propagandy to now. Like, how do you feel about this like retrospective career that John has sort of carved out as a figure in music from his presence in Propaganda, his beloved first two Propaganda records, and then going through this entire Weakerthans and solo record career. Like, how do you feel about this story so far?
You know what? It's really funny. Like the more that I think about it, he almost looks back on. It seems like he looks back on his years in Propaganda as almost like his um his teenage years that he looks back on. He's like, oh, I kind of regret it a little bit because he doesn't ever talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And anytime it's really mentioned to him, it's like he kind of pushes it away. But he still plays those songs like
Yeah.
Anchorless and all that. But I feel like as he matures, he kind of like just moves on in his life, like in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Like he doesn't look back on it in disdain, but he just, it's like, you know what, that was a part of my life, and now I'm not in that part of my life anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you don't hear like any negative things between any of the members.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I
yeah.
actually heard John on an Escape Velocity radio podcast with Chris Hanna several years ago now at this point, but it was long after John had left the band, and he was talking about an activist issue that he was working on, and John and Chris were just talking on the phone on Chris's podcast, like, no big deal, like years had elapsed, and he's like, John K. Sampson, welcome to Escape Velocity, and he's like, hey, great to be here, and it was just totally awesome, so I feel like the vibe is good, which is really fantastic as well.
I feel like their politics are almost so like they're so different in such a way that like Chris is the band is so extreme, whereas like John is so mellow in the things that he says. He's such a humble guy in that he just lives his life, and he's so passionate about the things that he cares about, and like he's not out to hurt people, like he doesn't want to, like, not to say that Propaganda is out to hurt people, but it's like he does it in such a way that he doesn't want to be divisive. Like he wants to bring people together and support things for the right reasons, like his song Millennium for All, like he's just trying to support libraries.
Love that song,
right? Like it's
Love it.
like and like, well, I mean, you could go back and listen to the fantasy baseball for the end of the world, like
love that one too.
That's a very angry song, but at the end of that campaign, everyone was pretty angry, let's be honest.
Yeah, and I've actually been following the development of the Millennium story as well, and there actually have been recent developments that I was seeing in the news just the other day, I think. Cool. I follow a whole bunch of Winnipeg stuff on Twitter. I've really taken a fascination with that town. As you might imagine, I have heard tons of feedback from people who live in Winnipeg about the show, which is so exciting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a very fascinating town. Like, there's such a rich history there, like going back to like the general strike. Like it's a very interesting political town. There's not really many towns in Canada like it.
Nice. What do you appreciate most about John's main songs when he was in Propaganda? So he's got Letter of Resignation, Anchorless, Gifts, Half of Showdown. How do you feel about those little songs jammed within those records?
I'm just like, it's really fascinating to me that he was able to push his, like, almost, he was trying to get his message across, and put his artistic value, like, in it. It was almost a band that was just Chris Hanna at that point, right? Like it's, and I don't know. I love the songs. They're very, very early development in terms of punk songs. And I appreciate how they developed into Weakerthans songs.
Question then, do you like the Propaganda versions or the Weakerthans versions more of Letter of Resignation and Anchorless? Which ones do you like more?
I like the Letter of Resignation on the 7-inch better than I like the fellow version.
Interesting.
It's very raw, which I really appreciate. I like Anchorless better by John Kay. However, like on
Nice.
the Weakerthans, yeah.
Did you listen to the Gifts live solo electric versions and things like that? We did an episode on that recently, and I loved watching John play those songs by himself in big rooms.
Yep.
He'd be like, this one's a propaganda song, and then he'd launch into Gifts, and I'm with like, just right there on his electric guitar. It's all by himself. It's like, I love this. This is how it's meant to be.
You know what? I really like seeing him play electric guitar because it seems like it almost never happens.
Mm.
He's usually playing the acoustic and Christina's playing with him.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think they harmonize very well, but it's really interesting to see him playing on it. It's like, I don't know what kind of guitar he plays, but it's really cool.
Yeah, man.
I actually didn't listen to that yet.
And I got the Christine Fellows full length LP in the mail, and it came with the 7-inch of Christine, John, and another and the poet whose name is like escaping me, and I feel so stupid right now because it's in the other room.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh, have you seen that? It came with the LP from when I ordered the Christine Fellows LP. I was so delighted.
I haven't like listened to it, or I know about it because I'm in like the Weakerthans Samson posting group.
Sure.
And it was one of the albums that were like, oh, this is available and you can get it from the bookstore, which is really big in Winnipeg right now, and I can't think of the name of. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think there's only 350 copies of that 7-inch too, and I think if you order if you go on to Christine Fellows' Bandcamp and you find the email address and you order the full length LP, it might come with the 7-inch because mine came with it, and I was so excited because free 7-inch.
Yeah, I feel like it's not like it's one of those things. Yeah.
It's spoken poetry as well. Like I listened to it the other day, and I was like, it's not singing. There's music backing it, but it's like spoken word poetry over music.
Yeah.
Really avant-garde and wonderful. All right. So anyway, Mike, tell me a little bit about, seeing John live in any of his projects. I want to hear about some memories that you have of going to see either his bands or him by himself. Tell me about what stands out to you about some of the live experiences you've had.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I have never seen John K. Samson live.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I've seen the Weakerthans 2 times.
Yeah. So I've only really been fully into the Weakerthans within the last probably 5 years.
Okay, cool.
So unfortunately, the last time they played in Toronto was at Riot Fest.
Oh wow.
So John K. Samson actually played a show in Waterloo in a living room, and I was supposed to go and I couldn't, and I'm still so very upset about it. And a friend of mine that went, she sent me a video, and it was him playing 17th Street Treatment Center, and I was like, oh, that's one of my favorite songs.
Oh man.
Yeah.
A big memory that jumps out to me seeing John live is when it was 2001 and the Weakerthans were on tour, and the opening band was Guelph, Ontario's own Constantines.
Yeah.
And the Constantines, I think the record that they were on was Shine a Light. Yep. And that was amazing. Like that show, the Constantines were a force of nature live.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that was so crazy. I couldn't believe how great that show was. Like I went there like super stoked to see the Weakerthans, see John K. Samson live for the first time in person, and freaking Bri Webb comes out there and like just blows my face off. And I was like, that was the best opening band I've ever seen. God, love it. So, you've worked with Bri Webb and the Constantines a little bit, it seems like. Tell me a little bit about that. We're going to get to the tribute record soon, but I want to hear about maybe a little bit of Guelph Constantine stuff too.
All right. So, I don't know if you know who Cup the Duke are. I don't know.
I don't know.
So there's a group from Oshawa. They're called Cup the Duke. They actually had a song. I don't know. They had a song on some American show. I think it was like, I don't know, whatever. Their singer played a show in Guelph, and I actually reached out to Bri because I knew of him and his project. He lives in Guelph, and I knew the Constantines. So we kind of hooked up. He wasn't able to do it because at that time he was taking time away just to be with his family.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the tribute album came around, I knew of his past with the Weakerthans, and I was like, you know what, I have to reach out. And yeah, he was very adamant to be a part of it, and he was very adamant to do the song Bigfoot. I was like, you know what, Frank Turner's already doing it. He's like, you know what, I really want to do it. I was like, all right, well, I can figure this out. I really wanted to put out a split 7-inch with the two songs, but Frank was like, you know what, the record label won't go for it. I was like, that would have been so great. But yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, and I'm actually looking at the track listing right now of the tribute record, and I was like, bookended Bigfoots.
Yep.
I did that on purpose, yeah. And there's such different lengths: 1:51 for the Frank version and 2 minutes and 46 seconds for the Bry Webb version.
I kind of did it in such a way that like Frank's version is very like uplifting and very positive sounding.
Yeah.
Whereas Bry's is like, it's very like slow, but it works.
So interesting. Oh, yeah. My gosh. I'm getting all the dirt right now. I love it. All right. So, I am all about crackpot, long shot, creative bursts of energy. Like Keith and I make this propaganda podcast. Like every single week, it's like a frantic like process of making this podcast for everybody. But we love it because it makes us feel creatively fulfilled in the world. And I feel like you and I might have that in common because you have made the Weakerthans, you curated this Weakerthans tribute record, one great tribute. You are now, embarking upon this process of doing a song by song Weakerthans podcast. Sounds familiar. I'm curious about the creative process for this tribute record. Why did you do this? How long did it take? What was the process like? Tell me about the logistics of this thing.
All right. Well, so it started as a Facebook status. I kind of was like, you know what? Who would be interested in doing a Weakerthans tribute? Like, who would be interested in that? And I was like, I got a few responses, and people were like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. And then, like, it all started with like, I don't know if you've ever been. Well, you've always been on YouTube. But there is the 3-song added together version of the Virtute saga.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could also do like the 5-song version as well.
Yeah.
So I sat down, and I was going through a really hard time in my life. And I sat down and listened to it over and over and over and over again. And that's what it really led to that. So on the basis of the actual tribute album, like it was put out there to help raise awareness to mental health. Mm-hmm. So the money that I raised for it initially was to benefit the CAMH as well as the CMHA. So those are all both mental health organizations in Canada. So that it really tied into just basic mental health and what I was going through at the time. And it like listening to the Weakerthans helped me through a really dark time in my life. And that's what really brought about the project.
Nice.
Yeah.
How did you, so this thing's like, it's a behemoth of an album. It's got 23 songs, I think.
Yep. Yes.
What are the logistical challenges like for wrangling 20 plus bands to record songs in a reasonable amount of time and get them back so that you have the time to sequence it? Like, what is this like? Tell me what was hard about this process.
So when I first started it, I was happy that I got 9 songs. There was a lot of stuff that was initially left off because it got so out of control that I was like, I'm sorry, like there's so much on this album. And you know what? As I talked about it, and there was somebody that actually made a review afterwards that there wasn't enough like women and like non-binary people involved. And I was like, it wasn't a fault of my own. It was just, it had become such a big project that I had to make decisions on what was going to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, it wasn't through a fault of my own that I didn't want people involved. It was either they didn't, like, at the end of the day, like they declined, or and it was such an enormous project by the end that I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna stop accepting. Like, people were still messaging me like up to a week before, like Ian Blurton, that was like had produced the Weakerthans album, was like, oh, I forgot, but if you're still accepting like songs, like I'll do a song. I was like, yeah, we don't have time, and there's already like way too many songs on the album.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge collection of fantastic music, and some of my friends of the podcast are on there. Frank Turner's on there doing
Yep.
Bigfoot. Austin Lucas does a wild and fabulous version of
Yep.
Anchorless that starts off so soft and sweet, and then builds to this massive party in the
I was so
outro.
blown away when he put that in. I was like, this was not what I was expecting, and I feel like I insulted him by saying that. He's like, well, what do you mean? I thought, I was like, well, no. Like, it's great.
It's
like,
amazing.
It was so different than what I thought you were going to do with it.
Yeah, it's really wild. And I was listening to it the other night, and I was floored by the Cold Rex version of Watermark. And I went on Twitter and I was like, everybody, this Cold Rex version of the Weakerthans Watermark is a total banger. You are going to love it. I promise. Check this out.
That was like the first full song that was actually put in.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because he said that he had pretty much, they had almost fully recorded it. He just had to go in and lay down vocals.
What a heck of a first song to receive. I bet that was
right?
a nice little burst.
It really set tone.
Yeah, I bet that was a nice little boost, a good mood boost, right? Success right off the bat. And then, Lowest of the Low is on there. Tell me about working with them, because, there's a lot of propaganda overlap with Lowest of the Low, and they're on your tribute record.
Yeah. So Ram is great. So I messaged him. I have and I was just like, I have this thing that I have doing. And he was like, you know what? I have someone in my life that is going through mental health problems right now, and I absolutely would love to be involved. And he's like, well, what did you have in mind? I was like, you know what? I think the perfect song for you would be Pamphleteer. And he's like, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Amazing.
Yeah. And it was really weird. Like, I wasn't expecting like a ska song, but it really took it to like that, almost that propaganda level.
It was so cool. I was actually just listening to that exact song before we got on this call. So it really kind of set the stage and kind of boosted my spirits a little bit tonight. All right. So Mike, what is your all-time favorite John K. Samson related album? Pound for pound, favorite one.
Wow. That's tough. I mean,
go with your gut.
I would have to say Winter Wheat.
Oh, interesting choice.
Yeah. I really like all the songs on there. It's just so good. Like I really love, like, my favorite song, which is not on that album, is Heart of the Continent. Which is, I don't know if you know this, but Heart of the Continent is like a sequel to One Great City.
Interesting. I don't know that.
So if you actually listen to the song, the chords are exactly the same.
Oh, cool.
So One Great City is the actual former slogan from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And Heart of the Continent is the current slogan for Winnipeg.
Mind blown.
Yes.
I'm so happy right now.
So yeah, the chords are exactly the same. And it's still that feeling of like, I love this city, but there's this feeling of despair of it changing. Right? Like both the songs they're different in their own lyrical content, but they have the same theme.
Nice.
Whereas this town is growing around me, and I don't recognize it anymore, but it's still a city I love.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would say that mine's live at Burton Cummings Theater. I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
I'm totally obsessed. And so I'm like, it just brings together absolutely everything that I love about everything John's ever done into one nice double LP package, which really just sounds really damn great coming out of my sound system. In the first episode of Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast, you talk about getting together with John. What was his role in the tribute record? Thoughts on his thoughts on the podcast project? How's John sitting with all your projects that you got going on?
He's been great. When I first went to him with the idea of the tribute album, I wanted to make sure it was completely kosher with him, and he was cool with it right from the get-go. He's been very supportive. When I met with him, he was very interested in everything that was going on. He definitely lamented the fact that it's difficult to put out a vinyl version of any record.
Yeah.
So I definitely tried to put out a vinyl version of the tribute album, but it's such a beast in that it would have to be a double LP, and it would be expensive. And I tried to crowdfund it. Unfortunately, it kind of started in the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was really great, and I've told him about the podcast, and he was congratulatory. And yeah, like every once in a while, I'll shoot him an email to see how things are going, and
nice.
He lets me know, and he lets us slip a few tidbits of what he's going doing. But yeah,
awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. And you don't even have to spill, you save that for the podcast someday, and you talk about that on the podcast someday. I love it. Have you had any unexpected friendships or relationships or feedback that you've gotten in the wake of the tribute record that kind of surprised you at all?
Well, I was blown away that I got an email from Frank Turner.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess working with just anyone really. I mean, it's not so far out of the out of my mind that people would be so grateful to work with. It's such a small scene, the punk scene in general, that people, you could reach out to them, and it's not like rock music, right? Where you feel so disenfranchised by the people at the top. These people are always willing to work with. I was talking with Quinn, talking about how was trying to get, I guess, Justin Pierre Courtney from Motion City Soundtrack involved, because Justin is a Weakerthans fan.
Nice.
Justin, Motion City Soundtrack actually did a Weakerthans cover, but it's a lot of these people they don't set themselves apart from no matter how big they are. They'll always be there. Frank, I'm pretty sure he has his email address on his website.
He does, yeah. He came on this podcast. We loved having him. We talked about today's empires, tomorrow's ashes, and it was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, so people are never out of the realm of reach in terms of getting a hold of them. But it's been really great working with a lot of it. It was really great working with a lot of those people, because I never imagined in a million years that I would get that chance, because unfortunately I'm not musically inclined. So it was my way of doing something that wasn't making music.
That is exactly what this podcast is for Keith and myself. We get to talk about things we love. We get to talk to people we respect, whose art we like, whose scholarship and publications we like. And we get to do it all under this tidy banner of talking about propaganda songs. It's such a pleasure. And so let's get into your new project a little bit. Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans project, which I've alluded to many times at this point. You have an episode out on fantasy baseball at the end of the world. Tell me how you landed on the name Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast.
Well, I had initially put out a call to kind of get ideas for the name, because I really didn't know. People put out all these silly ideas, and a lot of them landed around for Tute, let's be honest. But ultimately, Sounds Familiar, which is a track from the Weakerthans, it just seemed to it worked. It's one of those songs, it's one of those names that's you know what, I don't know, maybe I was just being lazy, but it was it really worked well as a podcast name.
Yeah, we and I love the fact that you included the colon in the middle of the title. Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast, Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. And then there's my other favorite, As You Were, a podcast about Alkaline Trio. So I love the colon separating the name.
Yes.
It's wonderful. So tell me about setting up your podcast. Like Keith and I went through this massive thing where we put all the songs into a giant spreadsheet. We started ranking them in the spreadsheet. We started reaching out to guests and putting guests who are interested in the spreadsheet together. The logistics behind it are absurd. And we've been doing
Yes.
3-hour episodes lately. It's really out of control.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about some of your planning and setting up for your discography retrospective podcast.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a bit like organized chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have an idea of who I want to be involved at this point. And I'm gonna kind of leave it up to them, what they want to do, and then I'm just gonna start checking off songs,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm gonna work from there. I would love for the band members that had anything I'm gonna be honest, I want if I had somebody like Jason involved, I would love to have let's talk about Red Fisher.
Yeah.
Like
Totally. You have to.
because yes, we're gonna go back and maybe talk to somebody else. We're let's paint it then. If I would love to see that kind of connection before we really get into I talked to my friend about how I was gonna have him involved right from the get go. He's the guy that did the Neon Skyline song,
Mm-hmm.
which was just really fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
John heard that, and I heard back from Rusty about that, and he's like, they were both blown away because it's so different. Which is there's a fire door. But yeah, he's one of the people that I talked to that was really, really, really into the Weakerthans back in the day. So I was gonna have him involved the first episode, and it hasn't really coincided yet. But I wanted him to do a song that wasn't the For 2 Day saga, or wasn't left and leaving.
Yeah.
I wanted him to do a deeper cut. He actually did a version of Fallow, which is really fantastic, and
Awesome.
I would love him to talk about, and I would love to have people hear it because it's really good.
Well, and something that's really cool about what you've done in the past is you've already had people adapt these songs. And some of my favorite episodes of our podcast are the ones where the guest actually made a cover of the song. So we had Lindsay from Frenzel Rom do an acoustic cover of Humane Meat, The Flensing of Sandor Cats. We had Willem from the band Intellectual do a cover of Mataka Marie Sakun Rasikan with Ian Leger, the punk cellist, where they worked on it together. And Jen Fiorentino's been on, and she did the cover of Last Will and Testament. I love including covers within the episode. So if you're sitting on any jackpot material in your archive of songs that you didn't release, or you can even go back to the artists who are on the tribute record and say, hey, can I put this cover in full in the podcast episode? Also, it's really just going to snowball. You know what I mean? There's so many possibilities of including music within the podcast too. It's just so cool.
I don't know if you know who Manchester Orchestra is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So Andy Hall actually does a version of a Weakerthans song.
Nice.
It's so I tweeted at him. I was like, you want to be into this? But it's whatever. So
keep
I'm
going.
Reach out for there. Yeah.
Follow up. You gotta do it.
Up, for sure. And Dan Campbell from Wonder Years, they did a version of a Weakerthans song.
Awesome.
It's I guess the Wonder Years are really big fans of Weakerthans.
Oh my god.
Messengers are big fans.
Yeah, and I know my buddies on As You Are, a podcast about Alkaline Trio, David Anthony and Tim Crisp. Tim does the Lawrence Arms podcast as well. Road to the Skeleton Coast with Brendan Kelly.
Nice.
That those guys are huge Weakerthans fans also. There's so many cool people that we've met, and so many awesome Winnipeg people as well have reached out to us, and they're like, oh man, and they would be so into it. So you've got this amazing wealth of resources that you can tap into in the coming months. It's really exciting. I'm excited for you.
It's really weird. It seems within the last year or two that this love for the Weakerthans has just come out in full force. It seems almost like the pandemic has brought it out even more.
They touch me. They touch my heart in a new way since the pandemic.
I couldn't find anyone like that was like I didn't know how go about finding people that were into the band until after. Like I didn't hear about it until like, oh, I love this band. Like,
dude,
well, where were you before?
Dude, when fantasy baseball came out this summer, I stood in my yard in a beautiful summer day and listened to that song like 30 times in a row. Like I just kept hitting play on my little Spotify. I just boom, 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 over and over. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like the lyrics were just so profoundly fantastic, and it blew my mind, you know?
Yep.
I felt so lucky, even though everything was so crappy, that I could hear fantasy baseball at the end of the world. I just felt so lucky to be alive in that moment.
It's really interesting, like how John goes about like writing material too. It's like he waits so long to put out music, but he it's almost like he sits on it for so long. Well, because that song was in his catalog for years.
Yeah, and I read an interview with him recently that says he's doing about 3 songs a year right now, and I was like, "Yep, that sounds about right," you know. And if fantasy baseball is the result, I'm good with it.
And it's not even a 2-minute song.
Yeah, it's just it's so perfect.
Yes.
All right, so Mike, what can listeners expect in the coming months if they go on this journey with you on Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast?
I mean, it'll probably be a journey of Canadiana frenzy. Let's be honest.
Awesome.
I want people to really experience the road through the Canadian prairies in the winter. I mean, it's such a desolate place, and that's where these bands were birthed.
Yeah.
And it really shows through their music that it's so naked, really. Mm-hmm. It's so stripped of all like pretentiousness, and it's just the lyrics just kind of speak for themselves, and there's nothing like it. There isn't. Like the Weakerthans and John Kay, like you could look at so much. And I remember reading the Pitchfork reviews of those albums, and I was like, what were these people thinking? Like, they're talking about how he's just trying to be pretentious and quoting, like Camus and Foucault. And it's like, no, he wasn't doing that. He was just saying like, he's being academic without being pretentious.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you what, the importance of the North as well is essential. And unless you have experience, so my visuals of this are driving north out of Saskatoon to Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and then up to Tobin Lake up in the north, and then like Lac La Ronge and places like that. Unless you experience places like that in January or February or a December when the days are the shortest, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And so many people haven't had those experiences. And whenever I listen to the Weakerthans and whenever I listen to Propaganda, like I visualize oftentimes driving out of Saskatoon north in the dead of winter with the snow blowing across the road and nothing as far as the eye can see but pitch black. I mean, it's there's nothing like it.
Well, that's like that song that I sent you that with that Big Bear song.
Mm-hmm.
It really reminds me of sitting on a lake in Manitoba.
Yeah.
And it's so visually correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Sitting in a little hut, with a little gas furnace, a giant ice fishing hole drill, a truck parked out in the middle of a frozen lake, and I'm sitting there, I'm a southerner from Missouri looking at it. I'm like, man, that truck gonna go through that lake?
It's like that grumpy old man.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing like it. And those experiences are so vivid in my mind, and I'm just I'm getting a little nostalgic all of a sudden. But I think that setting is so important for fully understanding what the Weakerthans have done within their music. And I can't separate the setting from the songs. So like I'd imagine that somebody from Florida listening to the Weakerthans, I mean, it would be like such a disconnected reality of listening, based just different, the settings of the listener and the setting of the band,
For sure, for sure. I mean, that's like listening to a band like the Decemberists and living in, I don't know, somewhere hot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't. It's a very large disconnect.
Nice. Well, Mike, I am super pumped for your project. I think it's going to be fantastic. I'm really excited to put out this bonus episode so that people can find it. Tell everybody where they can find you. Like, tell everybody where to find you, the podcast, the social media, junk, all that stuff.
So I am on Twitter under Weakerthans Pod. You could search me on there. I'm currently putting out my podcast on Anchor. So currently we are on Anchor as well as Spotify. I'm working to get my podcast as well onto Apple Podcasts as soon as I figure that out.
Yeah.
And from there, if you follow the Twitter and even the Instagram, I'm also on Instagram on Weakerthans Pod. I hope to constantly be updating and working and getting things more out there, and just updating what guests we have coming up.
Yeah, you've got that process now of getting the old RSS feed submitted into Podcast Connect on Apple's website.
Yeah,
it's a fun journey.
I figured it out, but I just need to get it to validate.
It's going to take about 3 days, and then you should be good to go. So everybody's going to be looking for that on Apple Podcasts soon as well, I bet. But Mike Robichaux, this is totally awesome. I'm glad to know you're like an hour and 30 minutes up the road for me, hanging out up there across the border. It's great to have you on the show. Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda, does a discussion of Sounds Familiar, a Weakerthans podcast, a bonus episode extraordinaire. So, Mike, thanks for coming and hanging out with me tonight.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Rushed out to kill something new so we could bury that too. The first chapters of lives almost made us give up altogether. Push towards tired forms of self-immolation that seem so original. We must never stop watching the sky with our hands in our pockets. Stop